Hey, this is Notser, and this is Untitled. This week we're going to do a British battleship retrospective. How did it work out? What do you want to know? I am trying to just really understand the line. I think there's some more subtlety to the line that could potentially unlock higher damage with AP. I sort of discovered this out of frustration at the end of my stream, and I want to talk about that. Also, let's just hit on Wargaming's trying to balance a lot of different things that sort of line up to the same complaint, and I want to hit on that. And then finally, the graphical update. What do you want to see beyond graphical updates for the game? I have one. I have one giant issue, and I want to talk about that as well. So, the British battleship retrospective. How did it work out? The NDA dropped on Monday. I had a lot of fun sharing it. I know some of you were getting really tired of seeing the same ships, but there's a lot of people who have been waiting a long time to see these, and there's still a lot of potential styles, strats to learn from playing them. The Conqueror guns are going to change, so the 419 content is completely irrelevant now, which is okay. I'd rather them rebalance it now than on the final day. Oh, by the way, this is completely different, so all my videos are worthless, right? So hopefully that Conqueror change comes soon, so we can test it. That's very important, Wargaming. Just a hint. But also, on top of that, I think the AP is just undervalued. You know, people are looking at just spam HE, and I'm going, where does that come from? Well, I can guess where that comes from, but I've had a lot of great salvos with my AP on my British, and I would not pass that up for a second. 15, 20,000 easily. That is absolutely worth firing. You know, it usually works like this. Your HE shells and your HE salvos will do the most damage with the initial damage on a fresh ship. Fresh ships take more damage than, you know, damage sustained ships. So that first salvo is going to read very differently than if they've taken a lot of damage over the course of the fight and you're trying to just wear them out and finish them off. So you have to consider that first when you consider HE versus AP. But also, I see people go, you know, AP just doesn't do enough damage. It ain't worth it. And I go, well, I think it is worth it. And I think I have a good theory why it might be worth it. So I was firing 381 in my Queen Elizabeth against the Colorado at the waterline. It's a natural effort to go for the Citadel. And 6 of the 8 shells shattered. Where did the other 2 go? Into the water. They dipped. Obviously, if you shoot at the waterline, you're going to have shells that dip. That's just the nature of the game. But I was thinking about it. I was like, you know what? What if I treat all the enemy battleships, especially battleships that I have no chance of getting the Citadel, or 99% chance of not getting the Citadel, as if they were German? Whenever I fire at a German, it's just my standard procedure to shoot the top of the hull. You're going to have midship, large body mass, you're going to hit the target. Good example of that, Missouri today, I was playing in it. I fired at, I think, a Tirpitz or a Bismarck. Midship, very accurate guns. Missouri, obviously, very accurate guns. 8 of the 9 shells hit for penetration, and they did a combined 24,000 damage non-Citadel. And this was not a stationary, this was a moving target that was broadside. I just got a good roll on the dispersion of the shells, and they all went exactly where I wanted them, the top of the hull. They didn't overpin. 24,000 damage. That is basically 2 Citadels. How often do you get 2 Citadels on a German battleship, right? So that's where I'm coming with this. Perhaps the German style of where we fire at the Germans a little bit above waterline is what we should look to treat the British AP, because the British AP has that short fuse, so it's not going to overpin quite as hard against a battleship as the others. If I'm going to commit to the top of the hull, perhaps having just normal penetration is going to outdamage a penetration, overpin, hit the water, maybe a Citadel sort of scenario, right? That's the theory. We got to test it. But it was a really weird scenario. It was almost, he had a little bit of angling, the Colorado, and it just shattered. You know, the Colorado has 25 millimeters of armor in front of, I think, 343 ish millimeters of armor. So it's about the caliber of my gun, 381. I can easily punch through a little bit less. But the angling and just maybe the way the shell worked, it just did 0 damage. Even though I know it at least broke through some armor. It didn't ricochet, it didn't do that. So there might be something slightly weird with the British AP, where going for the all or nothing Citadel might not be in your best interest if it has a less than 10% chance. The better course of action with the AP might be just to go top of the hull, treat like Germans when you treat it like you're fighting Germans, and you'll probably get a very consistent, very high damage AP salvo. It's just a thought. I can't take anyone seriously who says fire HE exclusively for a battleship. AP does so much more damage than HE. And yes, it's much closer for the British, but it's not that close. So we just have to understand the shell for the AP more, I think. I've had a lot of success in a lot of broadside scenarios. I just can't ignore that. I can't ignore the 15 and the 20,000 salvos that I've had with my Brits. I just can't. That's too high to say, oh, don't use it. More testing, more content, that's the plan, clearly. And let me know what you want to see. I know I didn't have any builds in it, and that's because I'm trying to get a full understanding of exactly what each British battleship is good at, what is bad at, what are you going to be facing most of the time, that sort of thing. Hopefully, as we get super close and that video comes out the day they're released, it will be much, much more understood. That's the plan. Let's transition to balance. Wargaming wants to balance some things. Radar, smoke, and inertia fuse high explosive. Gee willikers! That's a very interesting trio that they're looking to balance. Who would have seen that coming, right? So from my point of view, I think these are really tackling a very similar issue. Stationary campiness that just stems from the idea that smoke, people don't like dying to HE in fire for whatever weird reason. I don't like dying to a perfect broadside shot that is at 17 or 18 kilometers. Oh, but you were broadside for that half a second. Well, yeah. I don't like dying when I'm bow on and they can just overmatch all my armor and I die instantly because they have a roll of like all the shells on the exact same bow part of the armor, right? But smoke, radar, and inertia fuse all getting changes. Inertia fuse high explosive, it's a nerf. It's a buff for about 3 people, and it's a nerf to about 35 people. Now, is that a good nerf? It's basically a nerf to classes that were weak, and it's a buff to a class that is not the best, DDs, but there's not a lot of people who are using it. And the ones that do, honestly, they feel a little cheesy. Soviet destroyers feel a little cheesy. So I don't know that it's a good thing that could be a potential skill they take. That's just going to increase their damage output from range with their HE. Yeah, that's what they need. That's really what they need. But I don't know that I would take it because I would lose a lot of utility. Maybe concealment, survivability expert, superintendent. I would have to give up something that I enjoy using for inertia fuse high explosive. I don't know that it's worth it. I don't like ignoring the objective, and I pretty much have to if I don't take concealment on a lot of those Soviet destroyers. But it's going to kill my Mogami. It's going to take it from 10% to 5%. I mean, it's just awful. That's awful. That's American destroyer bad. We know American destroyers don't set anything on fire very rarely. It happens. It's just the way it goes, right? So IF, HE, probably not going to be used by me. It's just too expensive for what you're getting on a cruiser. And it's too expensive for what you're getting on a destroyer. It's just, there's so many good skills for a destroyer. Radar. So, it came out that radar is going to scale based on the target. And I don't know that this is good because it doesn't really communicate to a person. They're basically going to keep radar at the same range, maybe drop it a little bit for DDs, from 8 to 7.5 or something like that. Increase it for cruisers to like 9 or 10. Increase it further for battleships to 11 or 12, and then increase it further for aircraft carriers to 14 or 15. Now, that's all great, except how am I supposed to know exactly what radar you're going to be using against me, right? It's not universal. The radars are different for Americans and the British radar and the Soviets aren't getting any change. We need to unify radar if we do this, okay? The only difference of the radar should be possibly its duration, maybe the tools it gives you. We can't have radar exist with all these different ranges. I can't memorize 35 different radars, guys. I just can't do that. Got to do a better job of keeping it simple, guys. Or at least having it go on in the background, and the foreground is just us having fun, okay? And then smoke. People have talked about, oh, you know, the British cruiser get nerfed. You know, there's a little buff and nerf there. Because if a DD is stupid enough to try and go after you, that's a free kill. Let's face it. And you can get that information like you can get situation awareness, right? If I'm spotted, I know something's there that I don't see, right? And I can sort of infer where they could have been coming from. So yes, it might reduce your chance of survival against a battleship, but it's going to increase your chance of kills on DDs. And don't act like people aren't stupid enough to do that. I'm stupid enough to do that, so I know that's going to happen. So I think it's a push from that standpoint. I'm really curious to see where this goes. Wargaming, please remember, you don't have to have a college degree, and we don't have to do this for a living in order to understand this. Don't make it too complicated. Please don't do Camo 2.0 from World of Tanks. I shouldn't have to research every single tank or ship in order to understand these ranges, okay? Okay. So finally, let's discuss the graphical improvements to the game. I really like it. I think they need to be way over the top so people can read it. There's so many times where I can't quite see the color of the shell coming towards me. Is there something coming? Because they're so subtle that I lose them in the sun or the color of the map. We can't have that, people. I know that's realistic, or that could be realistic. We can't have that for a game. We have to be able to read and react. This is not a simulator. This is an arcade ship game, okay? But what I would like more than anything else, and this is sort of my closing statement, please, Wargaming, can you please give me UI scaling? I can't understand why you don't have UI scaling. I have a 1440p monitor. There's 4K players. Do you know how hard it is to see the minimap at 4K? Okay? Do you know how hard it is to see anything at 4K? This is just unacceptable. Get the UI scaling in the game. Please. This is literally the only game I play that doesn't have UI scaling. What's the deal? Oh, we have to redo it all. Then do it! What if I want to scale it up or scale it down? I don't understand this. Just let us do it. Sorry. It's just a pet peeve at this point. I hope you all enjoyed it. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I'll catch you next time.